Hello, everyone, and welcome back to River City Girls. We beat up a Bobo, so we're officially on our way to go to Noise's concert because she might have information on where Kunio and Riki are. Not that we have any solid evidence of that, but hey, gotta go somewhere.
It's kind of a running gag with the girls as they get like the tiniest little bit of info from each of these bosses. Like, well, maybe you're over here, and then just run 100% committed to it. That was kind of a running gag with the girls. That was fun to keep going.
Yeah, smack into a Yakuza headquarters by the end of the day. Just because Noise says, well, if they were kidnapped, they're probably over there.
But considering all the different threads that have been laid out, plus the ones upcoming, it's certainly Kyoko's and Misako's great adventure here. And it's not always. I mean, Adam, I commend your team for trying to make it as easy as possible, on future playthroughs to follow along. But how was it? How was it when trying to get the first playthrough to be memorable and just having everything happen the way it does?
I mean, we've done a fair amount of kind of linear or semi-linear storytelling in our games, and especially over like the past decade or so. So we're kind of getting better and better at it. One thing that we really did to as much as possible to the nth degree on this game was trying to keep as much of the storytelling either skippable or during gameplay as possible. We're not big fans of just constantly halting the action and making you watch a bunch of cinematics, and I also don't really like games where you have heavy story dumps during the cinematics and then the characters are just playing in total silence. So we leaned really heavily into the passive dialogue, which is what's happening as you're going through, and especially for this game, I think there's only 2 times in the entire game where control is taken away from you. Both of them are ahead of us. One of them is when Burnov vanishes, and then the other is with the Yakuza character at the end, because they both had very specific scripted things. But other than that, anytime you see the sprite characters, you're in control of them, and anytime there's cinematics, you can skip it if you don't want to watch it. So, structuring it, it was pretty much old hat. I mean, we've done a lot of these kind of games, so it was just plotting out what we want to do in general, figuring out the boss battles, figuring out kind of the gameplay first. Where do you go? What do you do? And then we have this long spreadsheet where we're just stubbing in little scenes, and those range from really critical scenes to just little asides, like when the girls are in the elevator, they kind of say hey, why is everyone always beating each other up? Just little gags like that. But I don't know, it's kind of a straightforward process, just because I think WayForward always does some degree of storytelling in our games, and we've especially in games like Batman and DuckTales, we've slowly been kind of honing this style of game, even though this isn't a platformer exactly.
Yeah, I think platformers and beat-em-ups are the kind of genre where the game really does benefit from a brisk pace, and slowing the game down for any particularly meaty bit of storytelling is always going to be a risk.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
Just with reviews of this game, I've seen 1 or 2 people here and there, kind of a minority, but, even this amount of storytelling is too much in a beat-em-up for some people, because, they're just used to constant motion in a game like this, or constant screen locks, as the case may be. I'm 7 parts too late to note this, but I want to say that putting an actual chain and padlock on the screen locks was a frickin' brilliant gag.
Yeah, and it was interesting, if you look historically at Kunio-kun, it is very few of them that actually lock the screen. I know Kunio-tachi no Banka, the River City Zero game does, but they don't do the actual padlocks. And we initially tried it with no screen locks, and you just plowed through. I mean, it was just the game was half its length, because you could just speed through everything, and it was cutting off story beats here and there, and we said, we have to slow it down, otherwise we're going to have, you're going to have a 1-hour game, essentially, if there's no restrictions like there was in River City Ransom. And then from there, yeah, it was basically well, this is a pretty classic gameplay theme. some people might not know what the heck is going on. So we said, let's literally put the locks, let's literally have the padlock kind of shake and break apart as you're making progress, so that people who haven't played a retro game with those mechanics, that didn't grow up in the 80s, would have more of a sense of what's actually going on.
Yeah, it's kind of like in games like God of War, Devil May Cry, and like how there's like a magic barrier that blocks you from opening a door.
Exactly.
And it breaks after the battle fights. It's just a bit harder to do that in a 2D game, where the place you're supposed to go is literally off camera. So this is an elegant solution.
Yeah.
Also, I want to point out that the secret shop is literally right behind us.
Yep.
Along that wall that we're looking at.
Which wall? The one that has the 2 notes on it?
Yep.
I think it's around there.
I think that's it. That's Merlin's shop, and it has the retro pixel aesthetic vibe that it does in River City Ransom, and right down to the shopkeeper who looks like she's drawn in 8-bit style.
Yeah. Also, sorry Ryan, couldn't save you there.
Yeah,
I mean, you're
sometimes
good. We get there eventually. So
sometimes the enemies in these games just get a bit crowded together, and it's a bit of a challenge to get them away from where you want to get them away from, or to hit the specific enemy that you want to hit. It can make it pretty tense when you're trying to knock out all the enemies except the red one or the zombie one. But I want to mention while we're here that the secret shop is only good for 2 particular items, and they both cost $5,000. 5,000 US dollars. Or 50,000 yen, if you prefer. The point is, they're really expensive, and you're probably not going to get them until, like, your 3rd playthrough. One of them multiplies your attack damage. Oh, game over on the field.
Yeah, I mistimed that dive, and so, magic of editing, go!
You really could have used the 2 items from the secret shop there. One of them is a button that makes your attack damage go, like, what is it, 6 times or 10 times higher? Enough damage to basically one-shot every regular enemy. But the drawback to it is that it cuts your speed down to 1/6 of what it normally is. And by speed, I mean the speed at which you move. So
yeah, it's the tank pin. So like a tank, you are very powerful but very slow.
However, the other button that the shop sells cancels this out. Because when you equip it by itself, it just multiplies your speed by 6. So you basically become Sonic the Hedgehog, uncontrollably fast. The same kind of speed you get if you drank a turbo juice, except permanent.
Yeah, and it was fun to play with some of those elements. Like you said, the turbo juice makes you go fast. I think when you have a double cheeseburger, it makes you go slow, because the idea is you're just full of greasy burger. And then I know there's certain items like scissors. I think you're not allowed to run with scissors. So it was fun to have our team play with all those little stats and elements based on kind of the themes of these items.
Yeah, they got a bit more daring with the accessories in River City Girls 2, I'm noticing. Like, there's like vampire teeth that drains your health but also heals you when you take down an enemy.
Yeah, that was like something that you definitely is a huge evolution from the first game to the second game, because again, with this one we're working from scratch. Even though there have been about 50 games prior to this, we're not using that code base, we're not using that art, so much had to be developed from here. And so when we got to things like the accessories and the items and what their ways are that they affect you, we couldn't really swing for the fences, because the more complex it is, the more testing it requires, the more bugs it introduces. So I was very, very pleased that the crew on the second game was able to go a little more ambitious and a little more unique with those items. That's something we definitely wanted to on the first game, but we had to kind of baby step into it.
Yeah, I mean, some of the accessories in this game are great. I like the which one is it? Is it the bomb top or the bomb bottom? Well, whichever one gives you a chance of one-shotting regular enemies. That one was good. I also like the spiked knuckles, because it stuns enemies crazy fast. And then you get to do a lot of stun guns. A lot of those, what's the wrestling move? I don't watch wrestling. I just know that everyone likes that wrestling move, and it's like the only thing from wrestling that I actually like. But I don't remember what it's called. But in this game, it's called the stun gun, and I started using it all the time after I got those spiked knuckles.
Yeah, I haven't watched wrestling regularly since I think the WWF days.
I used to watch, funny enough, WCW, which was back when WWE, then as WWF, just to make sure that we are not hounded by anyone, was big. I think that was during the NWO Splinter faction days. Gosh, I'm old.
Yeah. But, like, other than that and the coin purse and I think the virtual pet, that one was helpful at times. I can't really remember off the top of my head that many of the accessories in this game in particular that I found myself really wanting to use.
Yeah, it was, like I said, it wasn't as comfortable as it was in the second game, so we definitely, that's an area that we went into the second game knowing it was a little lacking on the first one. And also that was something that, you know, kind of was new, because in the series and the classic games like River City Ransom, they always had the edible items that you could either eat or hold, but they didn't really have that Castlevania armor sort of things that are permanent equips that you have to kind of swap between. So that was one of the new systems that we added, at least to this series, and it was one that we could only play with the parameters like a certain amount before we're just making it like an untestable, completable dev-wise game. So it's nice that we were able to evolve that, and I mean, along with so much else as we move from part 1 to part 2.
Yeah, the thing that I started to think about toward the end of this game is that when you're mixing beat 'em up mechanics with RPG mechanics, like at some point you can't go too far up or down the statistical.
Yeah.
The statistic. How do I put this? Stats. If the range is too wide, then the risk becomes that the risk is that the game might just become like ridiculously easy by the end. And like I played all the way up to level 30, so by the time I reached the end, some of the enemies were going down quite a lot faster than I expected them to, until I hit the Yakuza Tower, at which point the enemies suddenly became 12 times more of a threat, because gosh darn those Hadouken spamming assholes. But like when you hit the upper limits of this game's stat curve, normal mode does start to lose some of its edge. I think New Game Plus is more challenging in that regard, though.
Yeah, it is, and also like that's also the kind of stuff where stat-wise, it's not even just the balancing; it's also the development challenges, because you'll introduce new bugs or you'll introduce new non-progressions where it breaks the game. Because, for example, if you have a character, if you just let them speed up to where their agility is just like, off the rails, you might get into situations where they can start clipping through the collision or getting out of the world, because all of that is based on video game logic. If the game is saying, okay, I'm going to check every certain, every frame or whatever for what their position is, the faster they are, the more unwieldy they are, they start, running into weird exploits that you have to fix then.
Yeah, it's the old supersonic problem.
Yeah,
where the moment
exactly.
you turn supersonic, you start triggering all these collision bugs.
I still remember owning Sonic 2, and I eventually earned Supersonic, and I jumped up in celebration after hitting a goalpost and whoops, stuck in midair for all eternity.
Yep, it happens.
Yeah. Dr. Robotnik's diabolical traps.
And we just met our second Lee brother a few seconds ago. So, again, that was really cool. We got to use Billy and Jimmy Lee, and they're voiced by the Game Grumps, Danny and Aaron. We're friends with them, and I really liked how kind of their personality, just as YouTubers and hosts, are so yin and yang. The fact that Aaron is kind of always the more like aggressive guy, and Danny is very like peaceful and kind of zen. And so that's kind of the personalities that we gave the Lee brothers in this game.
Okay, so I have to ask, what is this guy's deal? Because like after you do the quest to get onto the yacht, he just sort of disappears like into dust and leaves his mask behind?
So Burnov is a character from the Double Dragon series of games, and he is purely in this just because I loved Double Dragon 2 as a kid, and he's the first mini boss you face. And basically, after you beat him, he puts his arms out and he vanishes, and the mask falls on the ground. And the only reason he's in this game is I said, I want to do that gag. I want it to be that he's a bouncer, and when he moves out of the way, that's how he does it. And so that's why he's in here.
Ah, man. I need to actually, like, play Double Dragon for real one of these days. Like, apart from that one Battletoads crossover from back in the day. Oh, Kyoko took a dive into the bay.
Yeah, they're really fun. And,
Yep.
and Arc System Works, our partner, they recently did a collection. You can get it on pretty much every console, and it has all of the 8-bit Kunio-kun games and Double Dragon games, and it has like both localizations. So if it like had like massive like tweaks for the US version, they've got the US and Japanese, but that's got Double Dragon 2 on it. It's got Double Dragon 1. Anybody who wants to see the origins of this brand, I would highly recommend grabbing that Kunio-kun and Double Dragon collection too.
Oh, I'll definitely have to take a look for that.
I'm actually
So-
checking Steam now, but are they perhaps separate collections? Because I only see the Double Dragon trilogy on Steam right now.
I'm not sure if it's on PC. Let me look it up. I know it's on consoles. I know it's on Switch and PS4 and stuff like that.
That is fair.
Ryan and Jason here just running straight past the roller coaster hazard.
Well, we don't have to lock a screen there yet, so
Didn't even give it time to show up.
It will show. It'll show. We just need to get tickets first. Yes, get tickets
Oh,
from
yeah.
the guy in the museum.
The pop quiz.
Okay, it wasn't actually tickets, but yeah, we have to deal with that. But this actually brings up another question. I know that the Kunio-kun games have dealt with a variety of environments, and some of them were obviously based off of either the old Kunio-kun games or Double Dragon. But what was the decision for some of the locales, especially since, well, I would be afraid of fighting in a museum normally.
I don't know, an aquarium especially. Like, this glass must be made of some pretty strong stuff.
And the other thing is we get so much more interactive with it in the second game. So again, we really want to do tons of breakables in this game, but we only got to do, I think, mostly like the vending machines. In part 2, you break everything, and so I believe you're breaking like some of the glass fish tanks and stuff like that in the second one.
I just finished River City Girls 1 last night and rolled straight into River City 2, and I noticed that right away, is that everywhere I stepped I was
Yep.
breaking some bottle that was on the ground, or I jumped on a table and everything that was on it just scattered.
Yeah, we really wanted to do that, and we actually had a little bit more of that working in the first game, but it was just too much to really pull off and polish. So that's kind of more in this. But yeah, going back to your question as far as the locations, I mean, we kind of took our notes for the big areas in terms of the uptown and downtown and the different schools, and looking at like the previous games. So we have like the nods to those locations, and then things like this, they're usually kind of stemming from the plot. So for example, we knew that we were going to put you on kind of an info fetch quest around noise, and we wanted to have a snooty hotel guy. And so if you have a snooty hotel guy, then you need a really fancy hotel, and if you have a fancy hotel, then looking at the different areas, this area is very much like kind of Santa Monica or Malibu, kind of like California, beach town. So just kind of looking for interesting areas that would make sense for the different rooms and give you a good variety of places to fight through. Again, some of it was homages, some of it was brand new. But one of the main things is we really did want to make River City feel like a real place. So if you're going around each area, you'll encounter bathrooms, you'll encounter restaurants, you'll encounter markets. Like, we wanted it to not just be absurd where it's just like, oh, there's 30 bathrooms here because we want to reuse the art. almost every location has mostly unique art, and we tried to kind of make them feel like real pockets of the town. And then the coolest thing of all, of course, is that as we moved on to the second area, we're adding new worlds, new scenes, and that was always our one of our meta goals with this brand in our version was continuously expanding our River City. So every game it gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah. I especially liked the feel of downtown when I got to it in River City 2, because it's the same general areas, but it's also so different.
Yeah.
Like, everything's been shifted around, and like, business has moved in, it seems like, but at the same time, like, there's also more garbage in certain locations than there was before.
Yep. Yeah, that was something that Ban and director on part 2 really wanted to put a lot of effort into is make, because the early on there's a little bit of a time skip where it's several months later, and he really wanted it to feel like there has been an evolution. So for example, areas that were under construction in part 1, now they finished the construction, or areas have had a shift in who the tenants are and stuff, so that you're not just seeing the exact same backgrounds as the first game. Even if you're seeing something that structurally is the same, there's still like little tweaks here and there to make it feel like an update.
You know what it reminded me of, though? Like, and this isn't a direct comparison, but it reminded me of playing Pokemon Gen 2, going to the Kanto region, and finding out that the Ghost Tower had been replaced by a goddamn hotel, and all the graves had been moved to this little shack next door. That was, it kind of gave me that sort of feeling. Like,
yeah.
Oh, this doesn't really endear me to the people of this world, but I kind of like it.
I thought the Safari Zone's closure would have been more offensive, but then again, I can also understand the disrespect for the dead in Lavender being another point of contention.
The Safari Zone being closed just felt like they didn't have time to add that content, but the Ghost Tower being replaced by a hotel felt like a cultural incursion, you know?
I can understand that.
Where did you say these frog people were from?
So her name is Waver, and she is from some super obscure Japanese NES 8-bit Famicom game from the Technos library. I don't even think I had an English title, but it's like this dice-themed RPG that never came out over here, and I don't remember it offhand because it's just a Japanese title, but it's she was a one-off character from there, and that was suggested by Ark. As we got deeper and deeper into the lore, and then as they saw that we really loved using the Double Dragon characters and the Comba Tribes characters, they started to get like really specific with some of their suggestions for cameos and songs and stuff. So it really is, especially between the two games, like a huge celebration of like all things Technos and Data East.
Ooh.
Also, her cat's name.
That, it kind of like, it's kind of heartening in a way to know that there are people like in Arc System Works who know enough about the properties that they bought to know the obscure stuff. Oh no.
And this is one of my favorite characters to write for.
Oh no. Oh no. Okay.
What's the panic?
I didn't understand Misako's, like, ambivalence here until I got to River City 2 and realized that this girl gives you the cat collection subquest.
Yep.
And then I was just, like, totally on her wavelength.
Yeah, and Mihoko, she's great. She's probably our most annoying character. Misako can't stand her. And what's fascinating, too, is the voice actress for Mihoko is the same voice actress as Sabako. Xanthe Wynn is so talented, you would never think it's the same actor.
Oh.
I would not have pictured that.
Well, until she, like, calmly says that she got rid of her dog. And everyone in the room thinks that she got rid of her dog and she has to correct them. Nah, I just sent it to my sister.
Yeah.
See, I saw us walking into the screen, and I was thinking we were going to see the other character that we're going to talk to, but no, she's down south.
Yep, we'll get to her eventually.
Yeah, it's funny because these two characters give me like the exact opposite emotional responses whenever I see them now. I really don't like.
Yeah, we'll talk about the other girl when you get there, but everybody really in our Discord and our fans, they really like the other character. What's funny too is in the second game,
Oh no!
when you
Yep.
when you pause, your character holds up a cell phone like they're looking at it, and so what we've seen people start doing is moving next to the NPCs and pausing it, and it looks like Misako and Kyoko are taking a selfie with their friends.
I can picture
Yeah.
that in Kyoko's character. Misako's not as much, but
Yeah, it's a little disingenuous from her.
that explains it. But yeah, this is the part of the game where Ryan and we did struggle a little bit more, even with the mooks at this point. Now, we only did one primary playthrough, so I cannot speak for all others, but considering that this was two of us, and this was actually my first time playing this particular game, level-wise, lack of using moves and recruits and food as much, how are we doing so far?
Oh, I think you guys are doing really great. Yeah, I think it's definitely, you can power through, and we'll see people that will, go through the game really buying almost no items or just healing on the spot, and buying kind of minimum amount of moves. But it's definitely a game where if you take the time to kind of tap into all the systems, eat all the food items once to get the boost, which again we didn't communicate well in this game, but it's much clearer in the second game. If you're kind of going through all that, plus you're having the storage items and learning all the moves for like what is best for your playstyle, gets much easier. But yeah, I mean it's so hard to communicate that stuff. But no, you guys are getting through it. You're doing, I'd say, above average for sure.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
That's what we strive for, above average. You don't want to be terrible, but if we're super good, then we get through it way too quick.
Yeah, I mean, this was definitely one where, it's a story-driven game. And so, we have games that we've developed where they're just supposed to be like a beast in terms of challenge. Like our Blood Rain game is really hard. But this is one in particular where we're telling a very consistent story. There's tons of VO. We want the players invested with Misako Kyoko, so we want most players to reach the end of the game. What you don't want as a developer is like a huge fall off when you're trying to do something narrative where only 10% of the people actually make it to the end.
Yeah, well, the game does have a hard difficulty for the people who want it.
Yep.
But when it comes to action games, when I don't necessarily like my first playthrough to be that kind of ball-bustingly hard difficulty that has me trying over and over again to get past a single combat encounter.
Yeah.
And I think this game hits that balance pretty well. I say that as someone who played it entirely single player, but also went through and got all the food items and stuff and really experimented with all of that. Only as Misako, but I ended the game pretty much maxed out, and I thought the balance was good. That's good
to hear. Yeah, something that I've learned kind of as a director, because I think I've directed about a dozen or so games. This is the most recent one. You invariably learn to be kinder and kinder to the players. So, we end up dropping a lot of mechanics like manual saving and major progress loss. That's why, so even if this is a challenging game and you've got the money loss, when you die and you're not resuscitated by a friend, or if you're in single player, you're only starting one room back. And that also has a lot to do with, again, the fact that we're doing like a heavy narrative. Nothing is more obnoxious in games than having to go through like lengthy story sequences over and over just because you've failed a gameplay thing. So that was another part why, again, it's either all during gameplay or it's all skippable. Every cinematic, every intro, boss, every animation sequence that's not gameplay, we made sure that you could skip. Even the intro to the game, we made sure you could skip, just because we know there's going to be somebody where they're going to say, nope, I don't even want to watch that 30 seconds when I boot up.
I know what you mean. I lost about a dozen times to Unalesca when I played Final Fantasy X. I know how bad unskippable cutscenes can get. That one was so long too. But okay, so Stone Cold Stunner. That was what it was.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I've been like, I saw it in that fight just now, and I'm like, wait, I know this. It's on the tip of my brain, like it's at the very front. It's about to drop into my mouth, but it's just not coming. And now I remember.
I wouldn't have caught that, as I said, a WCW person. Also, here are the roller coasters. Be
Totally
careful.
safe.
Ye-
Oh, hey.
oh,
Sorta.
Cowrie. She just wants to hang, but no one ever wants to.
Yeah, and we keep that going even in the second game, and people feel so bad for her. I think, and it's I think we have in the second game a Twitter like app called Honker that is kind of a mission updater, and all the characters have usernames, and I think her username is Let's Hang or something like that.
It is, yes. Oh man.
They sold out months ago.
I sympathize with her.
You could only
You
get
know,
in Noise's hometown.
10, 20 years down the line, in River City Girls 6, or however long this goes on, she's gonna be the secret final boss. She's gonna be the Rodan.
Oh yeah, she's had enough. Yep.
She's just gonna get fed up waiting for someone to want to hang with her. So she's just gonna go crazy and, I don't know, destroy the universe.
Yeah.
Something like that. It's that kind of world.
Remember, folks, even if people seem like they're handling things all right by themselves, talk with them. They may appreciate it more than you realize.
This is a really that took a really dark turn. I'm sorry.
I wasn't intending to go dark, but lessons are important, and
Abort.
it's
Abort.
all right. Fair enough. See you at the next part.